Greetings from Cybertron. This is SoundJack here with another episode of SoundJack's Rambles. And today I am here with Eric Crownover.
Hello.
And Noah Sunday Lefkowitz.
I'm just happy to be here.
All right. Yep. And we are here today because Infinity War has just come out. We have all seen it, but we are not discussing that today. Because the day this podcast comes out, May 2nd, will be the 10-year anniversary of Iron Man coming out. The reason why we even have Infinity War in the first place. So,
woo!
I think this is a very important movie to talk about because, what's going on right now.
Yeah, a lot of stuff is indeed going on right now.
Yes.
What? What do you mean? I have no idea what you're possibly talking about.
Yeah,
there's a little independent film that just came out. I don't know if you've seen it. Called Infinity War.
Yeah, and it's like the 19th...
No, I don't think I've heard of it.
I don't know if it's in theaters across the country. It might have just been like an independent film festival type of thing.
Gotcha. That sounds right.
Yeah, but they kind of took characters from all of these completely different and unrelated films, and there's 18 films involved, like this one that you might want to see before seeing this one. I don't know. It's kind of crazy.
I would certainly advise seeing the other films before you see that one, but.
Yeah.
That's for an Infinity War discussion.
Yes, it is. Which will be next week on this channel. Though you could hop on over to Steel City Bots by the weekend, I would guess. Right? Is that when you're planning on having your channel's Infinity War discussion, Eric?
Yeah. We'll have one on Awesome Asylum for Nerdy Geek Talk. So
yeah,
that'll be up next weekend.
Yeah, but anyway, Iron Man. So, before we get started, Noah, want to give a brief summary of this film? If, someone that happens to be listening to this hasn't heard of it before or watched it before?
Sure. So I will attempt to do a spoiler-free... Are we doing spoiler-free?
Nah.
The movie's 10 years old. I don't think you need to do spoiler-free.
Just do very brief. You don't need to get into the details yet, just very brief.
All right, very, very brief. The basic overview is there is this man, Tony Stark, who is the owner of this billion-dollar corporation, Stark Industries, that creates weapons for the military, among other things. He has expanded this business from his father, who died before the movie starts. So the long and the short of it is he's all into money and power and, all the rich people things. And then his life gets turned upside down when he pretty much gets kidnapped and why does he get kidnapped? Sorry, wait, I need to ask this question. Why does he get kidnapped?
Because terrorists.
Right,
yes.
Yeah, terrorists take him away, and they're like, we want you to build your weapons for us. And so he builds what they think are weapons, but he actually builds what is the prototype for the Iron Man suit, and he busts out of there, and his life view is changed, and so he doesn't want to make weapons anymore. He wants to, save the world, as your superhero origin story does.
Yes, he doesn't want to make weapons. He wants to make a weaponized suit now.
Right.
Lots of them.
Yeah, that's right. And the current, would you call him the owner? Who is he of the company? What's his name?
Obadiah Stane?
Yeah, what's his title?
He's like a co-partner, I think, because he took over the company from Tony Stark's father when he died, and then gave it back to Tony when he turned of age, and I think he's on the head of the chair or director of board of directors or something like that.
He's important. Yeah. That's all.
Basically, he wants to have power, but Tony has the power. And now that Tony has the suit, it is the physical manifestation of the power. So Obadiah tries to get that power by means of getting the suit, and he doesn't.
Well, he does.
He attempts to.
He attempts
makes
to.
A fat suit. He makes a fat suit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, very fat. Ironmonger is that one called?
Yes, yes, Ironmonger, which is ironic because that is not the only Monger villain you'll get in the Marvel movies. Huh. Didn't realize that we had more than one Monger.
Oh, yeah, Killmonger.
Spoiler alert! No, I'm kidding.
Michael Blaine, how dare you?
It's a completely different film. If they haven't seen it, they won't even know what we're talking about.
Fair.
You don't know that.
Unless they've read the comics, they won't know who we're talking about.
Actually, they're talking about me.
Yeah, because you're Eric.
Correct. But anyways, yeah, this is our first Monger. Monger the prequel.
Yes.
Well, actually, it's not really a prequel. It's just the OG. The OG Monger.
Yeah.
OG. That's funny.
Well.
Anyway, there is what some may call a summary of the movie.
Yeah.
Wait, you forgot the part where he just beats him and kills him.
Oh yeah, Iron Man wins.
Iron Man wins at the end. Iron Man had to win because there may or may not be 2 sequels of Iron Man, non-counting.
Oh, and he gets to kiss his secretary.
Yep.
Who becomes his girlfriend. Who becomes his wife.
Now that's a spoiler.
That's not a spoiler. That's a spoiler for a movie that's also been out for a while now, longer than Black Panther.
Fair.
If people care enough to be listening to this, they know about the movies.
That is very true.
Very true.
That is very true. But before we get into more details, question for you all. How did you first see or hear about the Iron Man movie?
I can answer that very quickly. You.
Yes.
2 years ago, I think, I had never seen any Marvel movies. And you, Michael Blaine, were appalled. And so we have since marathoned almost every single Marvel movie in order. The only ones that we have not seen together have been the ones that have been released when we have been living in different states.
Yes. Also, we skipped Incredible Hulk.
Oh, well, we don't need to see that.
Yeah.
What are you talking about? That is very important to disregard.
Oh, yeah. I was going to say, very important, huh? How important was it that they kept the same actor, huh?
Exactly.
Well, you could say that about Rhodey.
Yes. And
True.
Rhodey is the best, so.
True. But before we get talking to Rhodey, Eric, how did you first hear or see of Iron Man?
I actually saw it in theater. This is my first superhero movie ever because it was one of the first superhero movies to do really well ever. So I think this was actually my first one. I was but a wee lad. So yeah, I actually went and saw it in theaters.
You're right.
I was technically not old enough to see it. I don't think
you would have been 8.
Yeah. Look at me go.
You are so young.
Yes.
So naive, so innocent.
Yeah. But as for me, I honestly can't remember how I first saw this movie or when I first saw this movie. I want to say I saw it in theaters, but I cannot say that to a degree of absolute certainty.
I saw both this and Hulk in theaters, and then I think the rest I might have gone to the premiere of. Those two I did not go to the premiere of, because I wasn't ever super excited. But ever since then, I think I was I got excited for superhero movies. So yeah.
Cool. But now that's out of the way. Let us actually talk about more of the things in the film. One thing I just want to bring up really quick because I just thought of this before recording. How is it that Stark and Obadiah are 2 letters off from having the same last name?
What is Obadiah's last name?
Stain.
I feel like Stark and Stain aren't really that close. Like
I think
They're both
I
5
can
letters,
that.
STA, and then 2 other letters. I'm just like...
yeah, but
I think I can answer that quickly, albeit maybe a bit cynically.
Yeah.
It's a comic book. They have names that kind of resemble who they are. If Obadiah is trying to be Stark, it would only make sense for his name to be something that is also, in a way, trying to be Stark.
really, I just think of it as him being a Stain.
It could be both. It could be that too.
Like, I mean, again, it's been 10 years since this film's out. I've known both of their names, and like, I only just realized that like their names in terms of like how they're spelled are not that far off, but like how you'd pronounce them, and you would never think that.
Right, they don't rhyme or anything.
Yeah, like the Stark and Stain are just so, the RK and the NE are just so different vocally.
I mean, at least it's not Slade Wilson and Wade Wilson.
But then you have to cross universes, so
That's still an actual name ripoff, though.
yeah, it is though. It is.
But yeah. So speaking of Obadiah, so this is our first MCU villain, which is a topic of actual controversy when talking about the MCU, because that is their one thing that is always criticized most of the time, is their villains. Just overall, in general, villains kind of suck. I would say that Obadiah is actually not a bad one. And the thing is, I think that looking back, people might look back on it and see him as not as great because he's just he's a bad Iron Man. Like, that's like, in the final fight, he literally puts on the Ironmonger suit. He's just a big, bad, gray Iron Man. Mm-hmm. Which is, people are kind of sick of the villain being a bad version of the superhero. But you can't pull it off. But
have people gotten sick of that since this movie? Or is it something...
No. I'm saying that people... They were not sick of it then, so I think that it was better then than how people will look on it now. Like, looking back, people will be like, "Oh yeah, that's just a big gray bad Iron Man." But then he was a better villain because he seemed more interesting, and that wasn't an overdone thing already. So I'm saying I
agree.
Exactly. I think that he was better at the time than people will remember him as now.
Mm-hmm. And Michael and I talked about it in a previous episode when we talked about The Incredibles, and I think a similar statement can be made for this movie, is that this movie, being, with maybe the exception of The Incredible Hulk, the beginning of the current Marvel Cinematic Universe, at this point, a lot of what we now consider to be standard superhero tropes were not nearly as established or as overdone as they are now. So seeing a bad guy, seeing a villain whose goal is to essentially be the hero instead of the hero, while we may consider it overdone now, I don't think it was the most unique thing in the world, but I think it was still new enough that it was stimulating in a way that we don't view it as the same way now. But in its time, back when it was a wee lad, I think it was very effective.
Wait, what? Why did you say with the exception of the Hulk?
Oh, because I've had many a discussion with people as to whether that's currently in the canon or not, being that it is like a different actor.
It certainly is. They pulled a character from it. General Ross. Integral to Civil War. That is the one thing they pulled from the Hulk.
And full disclosure, I actually I have not seen Incredible Hulk, so I am at the mercy.
That's literally all you need to know, is that character came from there, pretty much.
I saw that movie and I forgot he existed.
Oh, I didn't, because whenever he showed up in Civil War, I was like, "Oh my God, there's a Hulk character." That movie is kind of relevant.
Interesting.
Yeah.
But we're not here talking about Civil War or Incredible Hulk. We are here for Iron Man. But yeah,
Michael Blaine keeping us on track.
yes.
How dare you? How dare you?
How dare I keep us on schedule? But Obadiah is very interesting in this movie because it's more so he's jealous. It's not so much
Did he only become jealous after Tony became Iron Man?
No, I mean he was always jealous, and that's the thing. Like he never, like his goal throughout the movie wasn't to always become Iron Man, because he's the one that sicked the terrorists on Tony Stark. Remember?
Well, yeah. I mean, I think his goal was, once Howard Stark died, he believed that he was the rightful person to inherit the company. And so I think to him, Tony has been pretty much the only obstacle in that way, because even in Obadiah's current, when the movie begins, Obadiah still has a fairly large amount of power and authority in the company.
Yes.
But I think, I mean, it's not really a controversial statement to say that his goal is just to get Tony out of the way in any means possible so he can run the company and gain all the benefits from that.
Yeah, he wants full power.
Yes.
Which I think is one of the reasons why he is I would argue that he is one of the better villains, because that comes from a very true place of he doesn't want, at least in the beginning, before there is an Iron Man, he does not want supernatural powers. He does not want to be a literal god. He wants corporate control, which in the real world is the closest thing to being a god. I mean, if you think about some of the CEOs of Apple, Disney, all of these things, they have tremendous power over the average consumer. And I think it's a very real, albeit a bit forward desire that he has, which makes him a relatable villain, which I think makes him an effective villain.
Mm-hmm. I'd say that's for sure. I'd definitely say he's an effective villain. I don't think he's definitely not my top 3 Marvel villains now.
No.
He might be top 5. I don't know. I'm trying to think of how I'd rank him, but still, he's not like at the very top, but he's certainly on the upper half rather than the lower half, because there's a lot of shortcomings in Marvel movies, and I would say that even now, he still is one of the better ones. But in terms of character, we have a far more interesting character who has had far more changes, because he doesn't die, over the last decade.
Yeah,
and that would be Tony Stark. This is his origins, and he's a kind of a piece of trash. And by kind of, I mean, no, he's just a piece of trash at the beginning. You know, he's supposed to be. Like, that's the entire point of his character. Yeah. He goes from being a piece of trash to becoming responsible. Although the main responsibility comes way, like, it's taken him 10 years to get to how he's responsible he is now. Whereas in this movie, he probably goes through a lot of change, but still, he's a lot more growth to go through.
Yes.
But I got to say that he does go from being complete garbage to less garbage. But he's still relatable.
I love that statement. And I would like to point out something that I think is interesting. I've talked to many people about this. So he is Michael Blaine. Am I allowed to say asshole?
No.
Okay.
No swears.
Okay. Well, he's a dumb person. He's sarcastic and rude, and he is
arrogant.
Yes, he's a very arrogant, egotistical person that the audiences love. And audiences love this kind of know-it-all character, this very selfish character. And my question would be, as he makes these realizations, and he becomes, if you want to say, a better person, even through Iron Man 2 and 3, does that make him less interesting theatrically, filmically? Because watching, it's like, is he slowly turning into the Superman complex? Because somebody who does...
Oh, God, no. He's not even close.
Okay, cool. I just wanted to point it out there because
No, he's interesting because he still deals with conflict.
Yes.
Yes.
He's still, I was going to say, even now, he still has plenty of conflict, but especially internal conflict. Like, he has become more responsible, but it's still a battle for him to do so. I think Civil War is ultimately the culmination of that journey. Like, I think that's the high point in terms of what we're going to get in character development from him.
Yeah.
I mean, he's not done in terms of, because there are movies that star Iron Man post Civil War, but I think that is really the high point in terms of his journey from being utter trash to actually caring and trying and doing stuff. But I think what makes his character so interesting is that he still always has the sarcasm, and he still has to question, what is the right thing, stuff like that. But yeah, I think that it's important. His character is important because he teaches the audience that maybe you shouldn't idolize the pieces of trash.
That's interesting. Yeah, no, you're right.
Because he teaches, he becomes a better person and shows that hey, that isn't good. I should be this, and so I think that almost should, I don't know if it does, teach the audience that hey, you shouldn't look up to arrogant, sarcastic, human garbage. You should look to people that are trying to do the right things, stuff like that. So
Yeah.
Right.
And I don't know why you just made me think of this when you were saying just idolization or looking up to. But I want to bring this point up really quick because if Alyssa was here, I feel like she would probably make this point.
But Alyssa's not here.
No, but to bring Transformers into this a little bit, since it came out around it came out a year before this movie. And at the beginning of Iron Man and throughout all of Transformers, they're both about the war in the Middle East. Other events evolve with the Middle Eastern conflict. And while Michael Bay is just diehard for the military and for the war, this movie is hey, here's our military strength and here's the best way to use our force to do the right thing. But Iron Man and Tony Stark, I should say, kind of is maybe not.
Right. And I think that's what makes him such an interesting character visually, because regardless of the moral, and I think that's what I was getting at a little with my question is, yes, what we as an audience are supposed to get in terms of moral is this guy, has some learning to do.
Yes.
But that does not mean that he's more interesting when he gets quote unquote fixed. And I think that's what I'm thinking about is we were talking about Tony Stark's arc culminating in Civil War.
Mm-hmm.
If we had seen the character that emerges after Civil War, who has a much higher moral compass, he's got his drinking under control, he's got a stable, somewhat, relationship.
Actually, it's not in Civil War. They're specifically not together in Civil War.
Oh. Well, he has one person, at least, that he is in some sort of human relation with. Regardless of what it may be, it's all, whatever the state of it is, it's always with this one person.
Yeah, I was gonna say he's not. Yeah, I was gonna say he's not running around sleeping around with everyone like he is in the first movie.
Right, and then my question is, would we want to watch a movie with this? Like, would we want to see a new franchise with this character, with a character who has his life straightened out now? And I understand that the point of Iron Man is to go through that change, but there is still a part of me that says the unhinged playboy Tony Stark was just more fun to watch. Like, I'm not talking about morally what I'm getting out of the movie. I'm talking about in terms of a character. There's always that little thing in my head oh, well, he is kind of he's becoming more and more of a symbol for good. And what does that do to his character?
I don't know about that, because one thing that stuck out to me in Civil War, which slight spoiler if you haven't seen it, but it's not big, is after War Machine gets shot down, he blasts Falcon. Like, he just shoots him. Like, I mean,
That's
obviously he
true.
doesn't kill him, but he just shoots him. That is not something that Superman or Captain America, like someone who is, totally morally straight, like that kind of thing. Like, that was something that stood out to me, is like he didn't care. It's like something that he cared about just got hurt. He shot at a good guy. He shot a good guy, basically.
Right. And I agree, but I think not even a but. I agree, comma. I think that the moments that we find so fascinating about Iron Man in these later movies, including exactly what we just mentioned, are when he has flashes of that unhinged nature that we long for as an audience, that we crave. You brought up that point, and I think that furthers my thinking that we as an audience, even though we know that he was kind of a playboy, what have you, we long for those moments for him to get unhinged, for that kind of recluse to come back out. And I think in these later movies, that's what I think makes this like new age, like having gone to therapy Iron Man makes so interesting, is because he still has flashes of that unhingedness.
I think that that's more interesting than being totally unhinged all the time, though.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Oh, that's a very good point. Yeah.
Yeah, but no, I totally get what you're saying, and I agree. I think that the interest from this character is his struggle, and we are now at basically the opposite end, where in this movie he was almost totally unhinged and has just moments of responsibility.
Yes.
Whereas now, he's
I
mostly
think
responsible, has moments of unhinged. So
right, yeah, his arc has almost completely flipped as from the first movie, we are with him as he becomes a better person, and we relate to him in that way. And now, as an audience, we relate to him as the unhinged good guy, as opposed to the relatable playboy or relatable, like.
yeah, because I'm totally just a billionaire playboy. No, I'm
a billionaire playboy philanthropist. Is that what he says in Avengers?
Yes. To Steve Rogers.
Yeah,
that's right.
Because that
take off the suit. What are you?
A billionaire playboy philanthropist, and that is what because not everyone can see all of the movies. That is, regardless, what everyone does think of Iron Man: billionaire playboy philanthropist.
Mm-hmm.
Even though he is not a playboy anymore, he has not been a playboy for a while. That is still that kind of like perception is still kind of attached to him. So I get where Noah is coming from, but I do very much agree with you, Eric, that like it's more interesting, like him trying to be on the straight and narrow good path, but always.
I think that perception is even still there in universe. Like, I think that's still how people think of him.
Yeah, I mean because the media, because
he has taken responsibility, and like the media knows that he is better in the universe, but I still think that they think of him as that more than they do of how he truly is, because in the movies we get to see all the decisions he makes and all that, the people in universe, just ordinary people, they don't see that. They've seen what Iron Man has done in the Iron Man movies, in all honesty, because that's when he gets most of his publicity in terms of like literal press.
Yes.
Like in the movies, and then he's just also being a superhero and saving the world. So I think that until probably Civil War, where I'm guessing it would be made public that Iron Man is siding with the government and like bringing in the people who are not, then that would be the first real chance they've ever seen to see that there's change. So in all honesty, I think that for the majority of the time in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, that the perception of him is from this movie in universe is how they see him, rather than any of the other movies we get later.
Right, yeah, because regardless of what he's done, he's already created a public image by this point.
Yes.
He
is. I mean, the public image was well and truly there by the time this movie started.
Which brings me, I just have a quick question. How old is Tony Stark when this movie begins?
That is a really good question, and I'm honestly not sure.
Because I'm going to look up right now how old Robert Downey Jr. is.
It says that in Iron Man, in Avengers 1, it's guesses I'm saying he's 42. So that's in Avengers, which is still probably the same year as Iron Man in terms of in-universe. I know that Infinity War takes place 6 years after Avengers. So
that's right, because that's very interesting. No, you bring up a good point that the Marvel Cinematic Universe, the timeline does not directly coincide with real life timeline. Which is interesting because it kind of does, but it's compacted. Like it's been 10 years, and we're getting, and in this universe it's 6, maybe almost 7.
Wait.
I think that's a very interesting.
Actually, it has been 6 years since the Avengers came out, though.
But hold on. I thought at the beginning of Spider-Man: Homecoming they said it was 8 years since the invasion of.
They messed up. They announced that they messed up.
Oh.
In Infinity War, they straight up say it's 6 years, and Kevin Feige, I believe, in an interview said, Sony just screwed that up.
Oh, okay.
Really?
Yes. It has not been 8 years. It has been 6 years. That was just a total mess up of a line in Spider-Man.
I wonder if that will be overdubbed in the home release.
I've wondered that too.
Has it been? It's totally been released.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, it has been. I haven't listened to it yet though, so I need to go check that.
That would be very interesting.
Mm-hmm. That's very important to know. But
yeah, actually, I didn't realize that. So I don't know if the years between Iron Man and Avengers are right, because technically the Avengers came out in 2012. It is now 2018, and they say it's been 6 years since the Chitauri invasion, which was that was 6 years ago in real life too when the Avengers came out.
Mm-hmm.
So Iron Man came out 4 years before that. So I don't know if in universe that is actually 4 years before the Avengers or not.
Mm-hmm.
I would guess not, but I don't know.
Me neither.
I don't know. Either way, he's in his early mid-40s, probably.
That sounds about right, especially with also the age he probably was, well, at the very least, was when his parents died in the 90s. In the early 90s, and he wasn't the head of the company yet.
Interesting. Sorry, I thought it was necessary or relevant to ask.
No, absolutely.
No, I do think that's a really good point, because I think that actually they do take more modern day than we give them credit for now that I look about it. I thought it was more compacted too, but I apparently not.
Huh.
Yeah. Huh.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I knew that they took place relatively close, but I didn't know that it was that dead on. So that's actually interesting to see. But I think it's also important, since we do have still two characters to talk about, not nearly as big, but Pepper Potts and Rhodey. Which do you want to talk about first?
Michael Blaine, that's up to you.
Let's go with Rhodey, just because this is his only movie.
Well, yes, kind of.
Well, the actor's only movie.
It's not Rhodey's only movie. It is the actor's only movie because they didn't. If you didn't know this, it's because they didn't pay him enough to come back, is what he thought. Like the actor wanted more money in order to.
His loss.
Yeah.
I'd have to agree, but
But then they got a replacement actor that doesn't look anything like this guy.
Yes, but in all fairness, I like Don Cheadle better. So there's.
I was actually just going to bring this up. Is how do you think, regardless of whether you think or not, it was improvement, downgrade, or what have you. I know this is kind of jumping the gun a little bit, but how do we feel that the change in casting influenced the character? Because I know for me, at least, just right off the bat, from Iron Man 2 on, Rhodey seems to command much more control and authority than OG Rhodey, if you will. I know that his character is the same, and it is the same person character.
Mm-hmm.
But the portrayal of Rhodey in Iron Man 1 just seemed to me a little bit more laid back and kind of...
I totally agree. Totally agree. I think that he's more of... So, like, there's two important aspects to War Machine's character. He's very much a military man. That's probably the most important thing for him. The second most important thing about his character is that he is Iron Man's best friend. He's Tony Stark's best friend, really. I think in Iron Man 1, he does a really good job of being Iron Man's best friend. In the other movies, I think he does a really good job of being a military man, first and foremost, but also still a good friend of Tony. They still have some pretty darn good moments later. Mm-hmm. But I would say that this one is certainly more friendly, and with Tony and just in general, I'd have to say in this movie, I think that they improved the character, but I think that also he wasn't meant to be War Machine yet. They do give a little nod in this movie that, like, hey, that's gonna happen, just not yet.
Yeah.
But I think that I think it's much better. Like, if there's any place where you were gonna make the change, after this movie is the best place if you have to have that change happen. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I would have to agree with you that I think he's more friendly in this movie, and I think that the other version we get of him is better for me personally, though.
Yeah, I would agree there.
I can
totally
understand
personal
that.
preference. One is not better objectively than the other because it's just like, which do you think is more important to War Machine, like the military in that aspect, or the best friend of Tony Stark? Like, he is still both in both versions. It's just where you prefer that balance, I would say, is where you draw the choice of which one you like better.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I don't have much to add other than I think that is a very apt description of his character and the way it's portrayed in by each actor. That was very effective. That was good.
Yep. No, yeah, completely fair, completely understandable. I still just find it weird, but I mean, that's also because we're now used to all of the actors staying on and everything, and this is just...
I was going to say, this was way before the Marvel Cinematic Universe was in a solid place. Not that it was, like, in jeopardy right now, but because this movie did well and is what caused the Marvel Universe to do so well, but it did not have nearly the recognition or the power that it does now.
It's nowhere near in as bad of a shape at this point for Marvel Cinematic Universe as the Dark Universe is after one film.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, even though, I mean, they were already playing up like, hey, we're going to do more of these things because Nick Fury at the end, Avenger Initiative, yada, yada, yada.
Mm-hmm.
But you are very true, and, like, again, it's still just weird to that, but, like, Noah's point's very, very true, very accurate. So, unless
Pepper Potts.
Yeah, unless there's anything else to say about Rhodes, let's move on to Pepper Potts. Who?
Oh God, I never realized she would be so important from this movie.
Yes.
Like I don't get me wrong, she is the love interest in this movie, and yeah, like it's interesting. I didn't necessarily love her whenever I saw this movie. I didn't hate her or anything. It's just this character did not stand out to me nearly as much as she does now. Although I think honestly, it's not so much her character, but rather her function in Tony's life that has become so much more interesting to me. But this is like the origin story of that. So just personally, I never had much of a thing for this character. Again, nothing bad, just nothing good. She just never stood out to me. In this movie, it's later on where she becomes more interesting to me.
Mm-hmm.
I always wanted to see more from her, just because I always wanted to hear what she had to say about the opinion, because especially, going back to what I've said ad nauseum, back when Tony was a playboy, I always savored the moments when she got to like confront him or like speak her mind about her role in all of this. And I remember, remind me, how prominent is she in Iron Man 2 and 3?
Pretty. Oh, in 3, she's insanely prominent.
Yes.
In 2, she's very, I'd say more prominent than this one, but not nearly as much as 3.
Okay, because there were some movies, it sounds to me, I need to go and rewatch some of the middle movies. But there were some where Iron Man was in, I guess it was not Iron Man titled movies, but he was in it and she wasn't. And I'm like, oh, I don't know, I always wanted to hear more from her.
Yeah.
I think the only movie that she's not in that Tony is Civil War, am I right?
Huh. I don't know. Maybe it's just a misremembrance on my part, but
not that she doesn't necessarily play like do anything super major, but yeah, and I think that's kind of my thing with her character is she's kind of easy to forget sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess it would have to be Civil War, because I'm looking through the list and she's been in Iron Man, Iron Man 2, Avengers, Iron Man 3, Spider-Man, and Infinity War. So unless Iron Man's been in another film I can't think of, that would be right.
Huh, interesting.
I mean, Tony Stark is in the post-credit scene of Hulk, though, isn't he? Technically, if you want to get technical, I think.
If you want to get technical, but
no, there's technical.
But you're not going to get. Yeah. But you wouldn't get the characterization Noah's looking for.
Yeah, I do have to agree. You bring up a good point that I did like her little interjections in terms of him during his Playboy life, but once you mentioned that, I did like that about her. But again, just nothing about her ever stood out to me super. Like a ton to really give me a solid stance on the character.
Sure.
I gotta say though, with like her little snippets of dialogue, I think my favorite line from her was Tony Stark's already up and awake, and the reporter lady he was with the previous night wakes up and is wandering around the house. Mrs. Potts comes in. We get introduced to her. The reporter asks, "Oh, so you're the famous Pepper Potts? But you also sometimes." Have to run and get the dry cleaning." And then she was like, and then her response was, "Yes, and I also sometimes take out the trash. The car is waiting outside to take you wherever you want." So, like, you get, like, Pepper's not incredibly thrilled with Tony's lifestyle, but, like, she's there to support and help because he can't organize anything, and she realizes she is important in that regard, to keep in track. But it's also interesting of like what she considers to be too far to an extent.
I think it's. I just came to the realization that she's a character in this movie. She's become just a plot point now in Marvel. Like currently from Civil War onwards, I would not necessarily classify her as a character, but rather a plot point for Tony. I don't.
Which
Do you think that's fair or no?
I think to some degree, yes, and I personally that disappoints me. But I mean, there are so many characters now, particularly like in culmination movies like Infinity War.
Yeah, you can't do anything. Yeah, as you say, you can't do anything with her. You can't do anything with most characters. Like in honestly, in Civil War is an example too, because that was the pre-Infinity War, Infinity War. In all honesty, because that's the
yeah, you're totally right.
Yeah.
And so you really can't. They made her important because of what's going on with her and Tony, and that adds a layer to his situation right now. But in terms of actual character, nothing. Well, she's literally not in the movie, but in terms of character, just now she's literally just become kind of this grounding for Tony Stark. She's no longer a character, which I would have to admit is also kind of disappointing because I do miss her somewhat sassy dialogue. Now, I honestly had kind of forgotten about it, but you are right. She had some pretty funny lines. So I wish that, if we ever, unlikely, but if we ever got another Iron Man movie, that would be the time to bring her back in that sense. But
we'll get another Iron Man movie when they reboot the entire universe in like another decade.
Yeah.
And Robert Downey Jr. can play Jebediah.
Obadiah, you mean?
What?
Obadiah, you mean?
What did I say?
Jebediah.
Oh, that's from a different movie, Tractor Man.
Easy to confuse,
Jebediah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Have we said if we like this movie or not? I mean, I think it's pretty obvious, but
yeah. I mean, unless anyone has any other points to say, I think we can start wrapping this up. Does anyone have any other major points from this film they want to bring up?
I will say, just as maybe a little closing statement, my two favorite Marvel movies at the moment, as of this day, are Iron Man 1 and Doctor Strange. Yet I am fully aware that they are pretty much the same movie. That rich, powerful, arrogant guy has money and power and loses it, and then is forced to reevaluate his life and doesn't like the responsibilities that come with it and has to learn to master his new skill.
I think Doctor Strange goes through more responsibility quicker than Iron Man does, though. I think he's more humble by the end than Iron Man is.
Absolutely. Because, I mean, also, Doctor Strange doesn't start out as being a playboy. He becomes he starts out as a very arrogant doctor that is probably the most successful doctor that, at the very least, the city, if not the world, has. But he doesn't. While definitely what Noah does say is true, the schemes are the same. They don't necessarily start from the same place, and they certainly don't end up in the same place.
But I would have to agree with him that they do have the same journey.
Yes, though. That's what I meant with the same track, the same journey. They definitely do.
And I mean that in no negative connotation. I think it's amusing the way they are my favorite two Marvel movies, and by coincidence or not, they happen to have pretty much the same arc.
Yeah. For what I would say about this movie is that I think that it's looked at as like what people think of when they think of Iron Man 1 is not even necessarily itself as like its own movie, but rather the fact that it started the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and that is what its role was and, what it is to people. But I think if you just take this movie on its own and like look at it, it's still a really good movie. Like, it's a good movie that I think people kind of forget about, because when they think of Iron Man, they don't think of the movie, they think of it starting the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Like, they think of its role in real life rather than the actual movie. I think, at least. I think that's
a fair point. Yeah, absolutely.
I feel like that's what it's become to people, and I think that it's important to go back and rewatch the movie because it's still a pretty darn good movie. So I think that's just my thoughts on that.
Yeah. As for me, this, out of all movies to get this Marvel Universe started, I think this was this was probably the best choice for character, for plot, for how it works. Purely because this is, we had a fair bit of discussion that this is fairly grounded in reality, in terms of like the military stuff and then what Obadiah is trying to get out of it. And then we move on into the more fantastical elements of the movieverse and get started there, and then keep on going from there. And then at this point it's established. But the film itself is also a really good story. Talking about like a man that is smart enough that he is able to escape from terrorists by building a metal super suit, and then being able to improve and make it better, and then go out and start being a superhero and the resulting things from that. Great sentence, Michael. Great sentence. But very good movie. If you go to Nerdy Geek Talk and go back a couple of weeks to Awesome Asylum, I'm on an episode with Eric where we're listing all 18 Marvel movies in order in terms of our personal favorites. I have this on a playlist of mine. I've got a playlist of like other videos I'm in, and it's all videos from different channels. But anyway, I think I rated Iron Man at number 8 just because there's a lot other movies I like more than this one. Well, I still like this one. And Eric mentioned to me I might change my mind if I rewatch this one. And I did rewatch it before this podcast. Unfortunately, I'm not sure it gets higher on the list. Not that much higher on the list.
No, I'm just kidding.
Not that much higher on the list. I still love this movie, and the fact that this movie I enjoy so much is 8th on my list. I mean, I might move it up to 7th. I might have to rewatch Captain America to see if it gets higher than that.
Oh God, it's so much better than Captain America.
It's a lot better than Captain America.
Yeah. Okay. Fine. Move it up to 7. But
yes, we made a positive change today.
How good for us.
But
yes.
Michael Blaine, this is an intervention.
But what is my point now? But my point is that this is still a good movie, and it spawned a whole universe of a lot of great movies.
No, this has nothing to do with Spawn. It's a totally different movie.
Hey, Michael.
Yeah.
What did Tony Stark say to Pepper when somebody stole the Iron Man suit?
What?
Honey, where is...
Wait, are you aware of the fact that Iron Man 3 just is The Incredibles? A discussion for another time, but Iron Man 3 is literally The Incredibles.
That is funny.
But we don't...
I'm actually kind of serious, but... Anyway,
but we don't have a Violet representation.
Wait, we don't have what?
Violet. Because if you assume Iron Man is Mr. Incredible, and then Pepper Potts is Mrs. Incredible, and that kid is Dash, where's Violet?
No, the plot.
She's
the
invisible.
The villain was a big fan of the hero as...
Okay, that part.
Younger, he's ugly, and then magically later he's very successful and smart and becomes a supervillain, and he's a lot better off, and yeah.
That's fair. Anyway, sorry. Now we're really getting off track. But, very good movie. If for some reason you watch this and you haven't seen it, definitely see it. Not to belittle anyone who hasn't seen it, hasn't gotten into the Marvel universes yet, and just never Marvel universe at this time.
I was gonna say, this is one of the few movies that you don't need to watch the Marvel universe to enjoy.
Yes, because it's the first movie, so Marvel did the smart thing and made sure it functioned as a solo film. So it is not necessary to watch to understand the universe, but it is a very good, very, very good film and a very good Iron Man film. Very good to getting into his character. But I think that is all we have to say. So thank you for watching. If you enjoyed, please like and share this video and subscribe to the channel. Oh wait, hold on. Before we get further, Eric, how can people find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Eric Crowbar, or if you listen to podcasts, I have plenty of those at Nerdy Geek Talk, anywhere you listen to podcasts. That's my podcast network, which we have plenty of stuff, Transformers, Star Wars, Marvel. There's a lot. And anime now, apparently. Not my show, but it's on the network. So yeah, if you like any of those things, go check out Nerdy Geek Talk for all your podcast stuff.
And Noah, where can people find you?
You can find me on YouTube. Just search Noah Sunday Lefkowitz. You'll find my performance videos, my original music videos. Not music videos, but my original music. My vlogs of my time during the Disney College program. You can find me on Instagram at Noah Sunday Lefkowitz. And you can always go to my website, www.noahsundaylefkowitz.com.
I'm sorry, what was your name again?
Noah Sunday Lefkowitz.
Oh, okay. I didn't catch it, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I got you. No, I understand. I'm very subtle with how I choose to plug.
Very, very subtle. But that is all we have to say, and I'm starting my outro again because I cannot remember for the life of me if I start in the middle. So thank you for watching. If you enjoyed, please like and share this video and subscribe to the channel. You can also follow me on Twitter and Instagram at SoundJack426. Also, please consider donating on my Patreon page to help support the channel. All the links will be in the description below. Thanks for tuning in. This is SoundJack, Eric, and Noah signing off.